Right. Good evening, Zimbabweans. Good evening, workers of Zimbabwe, wherever you are. My name is Peter Gift Mtasa from the Worker Voice. We welcome you to this important discussion with the Labour Caucus in Politics. We have got Comrade Chairperson, who is the Secretary, and Comrade Madla Sibanda, who is the Chairperson. Comrade Madla Sibanda is joining us. How are you, Comrade Madla? Comrade Sibanda, can you hear me? Yeah, we seem to be having some connectivity challenges with Comrade Madla. Comrade Sibanda, good evening. Right, Comrade Gandu, good evening.
Good evening, Comrade Mutasa, and thank you for hosting us.
Thank you. We are happy and we are happy to host you, and we hope that we will not be disrupted by the connectivity challenge that Comrade Madla is facing. But briefly, are you able to tell our viewers who Labour Caucus is?
Thank you. Labour Caucus in Politics is a network of Labour activists who are in pursuit of participation of citizens in political issues. That includes, socio-economic issues. Having realized the deficit that is in existence, wherein existing trade unions seem to be apolitical, they are saying, they don't want to actively participate in politics. But as trade unions, traditionally, we cannot shy away from politics. For politics is what we are. Politics is just about who gets what, when, and how. And
good evening, gentlemen.
In the labor
good evening, Comrade Madla. Comrade Madla, welcome.
So in the labor sphere, as we represent workers, it is politics. So it's just a question of the scale in which you actively participate at. So as Labour Caucus in Zimbabwe, we are coming in to fill that particular void which is there, so that workers continue to participate in politics from wherever they are. So Labour Caucus in Politics in Zimbabwe is represented across the country by pro-democracy activists that want to ensure that there is no void in the political sphere, particularly from labor activists. This is born out of the realization that if you look historically, the many political giants, even from the liberation struggle itself, it was waged by trade unionists. So there can never be a time where trade unionists will say that they are no longer participating in politics. It is because of such void where we begin to see people taking over. You have seen teachers for ED, you've seen health workers for ED, you've seen everything else for ED being formed. It is because of that particular vacuum that is there. So Labour Caucus in Politics is coming in to fill that particular void and ensure that we claim our space and we move together as activists across the country. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's try to allow Comrade Madla to join us. He's trying strenuously, but hopefully he will be able to join us. Comrade Madla, how are you? I think we are losing him, but let's go straight to the issue. Zimbabwe is facing serious electricity and water challenges. In your view, what do you think are the reasons? Why is the country not been prepared for this eventuality seeing that our reliance over-reliance on Kariba Dam should have led us to look for alternative power sources. Why do you think the country is in darkness?
Thank you, Comrade Mutasa. One of the key issues that leads us into the situation that we are in today is because we are relying on colonial infrastructure. This is infrastructure that was brought into place, by the colonial system, by the colonial governments. If you look at the Kariba Dam, for example, it was built by the Smith regime. And if you look at most of our water bodies in our country, they were also built by the colonial regime. So the challenges are as a result of our government failing to come up with new infrastructure that should be able to cope with the demand. Remember, the urban drift, where we now have more people in urban areas. There was need, obviously, for our government to have appropriate infrastructure that should ensure that the urban population have got sufficient water and they've got sufficient power. You also know that there is rampant corruption, in our country, where public services are poor. Nothing seems to be working. Zeroing in on the energy crisis that you are talking about, you would recall not so long ago, Comrade Chivayo, who was given monies over $5 million to come up with alternative sources of power in Hwange. But of course, we continuously see him on social media boasting about the number of pair of shoes that he has got, well over 200 and so forth. And this is a result of unmitigated corruption, and where people can always get away with it despite fleecing the population. So not only that, if you also look at the DEMA project, which was stinking to the heavens in terms of how it was formulated, obviously it was meant to benefit a few. It was meant to benefit the political elites. And as a result, we find ourselves in the current situation that we are in today, where the country is going for over 18 hours without power. And that will end up affecting not only business, but also our personal livelihoods and our social lives. That's the
So looking at the power shortages in some cases going for 18 hours, as you have told us about. What do you think will be the impact to labor? Is there an immediate impact to workers?
Definitely, Comrade Mutasa, power is one of such key elements in terms of running modern day businesses. You can't run any successful business without power, be it your industries, be it your service providers, including a chicken farmer out there. They rely on power for their businesses to be successful. Not so long ago, I think yesterday, there was a video that was trending on social media where a poultry farmer was complaining that they've made a huge loss due to these power outages. So those are some of the glaring examples that will clearly show the downside effect of these power outages. But not only at that level, if you come at industry level, to then rely on diesel to produce goods and services, it means it will increase cost of production and hence increase also the prices of goods and services, which will ultimately lead to some form of inflation, if you like. This may result in viability challenges. And due to such viability challenges, we may find ourselves where companies will be closing, companies will be retrenching, and workers will then ultimately lose their jobs. So there are so many effects that are associated with such power outages, especially of the levels of 18 hours and beyond. It's actually catastrophic. To be truthful and to be frank, it is not possible to run viable business with such levels of low power.
Yeah, that's quite a bleak situation you are pointing out to us. But you mentioned the issue about corruption, and you have pointed out a number of instances, for example, the Bema diesel plant, and also the Gwanda solar plant that was supposed to add into our national grid. And those things seems to have gone on without any recourse. Do you think the government has got appetite to deal with corruption? We have the Anti-Corruption Commission. Do you think it is adequately mandated or empowered to deal with corruption? Why is corruption going on at grand scale when we have a government that is saying it has got a zero tolerance to corruption? When we have the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, which is saying that they've got a zero tolerance to corruption?
It's very tricky, Comrade Mutasa, if you look at this current situation in Zimbabwe, insofar as the efforts of our current government in tackling corruption, especially where you have this issue of catch and release. There's not been any meaningful conviction on any of the politically connected members of society that would have been arrested on corruption. They always get away with it. In fact, with the current regime, with the current government, corruption is institutionalized. It seems like corruption is accepted within their circles. That is why everybody, they seem to be supporting the existing political party. But the only reason that they support that political party is about patronage, it's about trinkets, it's about corruption. They want to join the gravy train in terms of the contracts that are awarded in government. That's why you even saw that those astronomical prices, including our very own parliament, where they will be charging astronomical prices for laptops, which are unheard of, which are pornographic, for lack of a better word, because it's truly a shame. That just exposes the level of corruption within our government and how it has been institutionalized. You recall the issue of the then Minister of Health, Obadiah Moyo. He got away with it in terms of the Drugsgate scandal. You recall the issue of Priska Mfumira, granted bail under very strange circumstances, where she is said to be mentally unfit to stand court trial, but we see her every day going to parliament. So those are the challenges that we see in our country, where we do not have strong systems, so to speak. Our systems are captured, as our systems are co-opted. And it's clear even from the head of state, where he goes on to address political rallies, saying that we are the government, we are the police, we are the army, we determine who gets what, when, and how. So this is how the system is oiling itself for it to continue existing, but it is doing so at the expense of the poor, at the expense of the marginalized, at the expense of the state, and in the process, failing to deliver services that are needed, services such as health service, such as electricity, services such as education, and so forth.
Yeah, so, Comrade Ndandu, with all that understanding of what is happening, with all that analysis and clear understanding of the political economy. Does the trade union movement or the labor movement believe that it has got a role to play to extricate the country from the mess that we are in? Does the trade union believe that it has to tackle these political issues?
Thank you. As I've said before, that the trade union had a role in the past in terms of even delivering our independence. All the previous political icons came through the labor movement. Talk of the likes of your Joshua Nkomos, the likes of your, including Robert Mugabe himself was a trade unionist. Comrade Musika was a trade unionist, and our very own Morgan Tsvangirai. So the labor movement has got a critical role to play because it is grounded everywhere. The labor movement has got structures. If you look at national level, it has got structures in all the facets of the economy and in all the regions. So it has got a wide outreach. It is one such organization that is capable of ensuring that they fight for the downtrodden. Now, zeroing in on this particular matter and the challenges that we are facing, quite true that the labor movement has got a role to play. But of course, it cannot play such a role on its own. It has to work together with like-minded organizations in civic society, in political organizations, church organizations, students, and citizens as a whole. The labor movement has got a role to then mobilize for the same, so that they demand action from the government in place, that they demand action even from the entire citizenry to demand even a revolution if it becomes necessary. If the government of the day fails to deliver, the citizens have got a right to demand the removal of such a government that will be failing to provide services. If you were to look at functional systems in other countries, in other jurisdictions, the kind of dilemma that we face in our country, would have led for the resignation of the existing minister or even the existing president, because they would have failed to deliver their services. If you look at the power crisis that we are facing right now, in properly working countries, we would have had a minister resigning. But Zimbabwe, as we are, at times, this appears as a non-issue because we've been going through cycles of crisis after crisis after crisis, such that at the end of the day, sometimes the citizens fail to notice the difference that we are indeed in a serious crisis.
Yeah, thank you very much. Comrade Madla, can you hear us? Can you hear us now? We seem not to be able to connect to Comrade Madla, but thank you very much, Comrade Ngandu. Just the last question. What is the Labour Caucus going to do about the multifaceted crisis that we are
Yes,
facing?
I am. Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yes, Comrade Banda, how are you? Comrade Banda? Yeah, he seems to have a very bad connection. So, Comrade Ngandu, what is going to be the role of the Labour Caucus in resolving the many challenges that you've spoken about eloquently?
Thank you. So, as Labour Caucus in politics in Zimbabwe, we are going to be mobilizing our members countrywide for them to actively take part in political issues in terms of choosing the kind of leaders that they want for themselves at every level, be it at council level, be it at member of parliament or senatorial level, including the kind of government and the head of state that they would want. So we will then be mobilizing this from the labor caucus level across the country, across the provinces, across the districts, so that workers are enlightened and they are fired up to take active participation in our politics. This includes mobilizing workers to register to vote. This includes mobilizing workers to take up positions at whatever level. So again, we'll work with existing civic society organizations and any other like-minded organizations in pursuit of active participation of citizens in the body politic.
Thank you very much. And what do you think should happen now? Should we have a crisis meeting between labor, business, and government and civil society and experts to deal with this issue? Do you think that is going to happen with our government, or we are going to continue the way we are? And if we are to continue the way we are, what is going to happen to jobs? What is going to happen to companies in terms of production?
If there was political will, this is the right time for business to come together, with labor and also with government, and have a serious discussion over, what is going on, because at least on this issue of power crisis, it will affect businesses as well. It will also affect the government as well. So every stakeholder is required hands on deck to discuss this issue. But beyond that, if the government is not able to address this issue, then civic society, together with trade unions, should be able to come together, have a serious dialogue over this issue, and then be able to chart a way forward, demanding, obviously, answers from the government in place, because the government was elected and the government should be able to deliver in terms of the mandate that it got from the people. They made so many promises, when they came to power, in 2018. You recall some of the most flamboyant billboards that were there, billboards on energy, billboards on education, and the many promises that they made, but they are failing to deliver on the same. So citizens have got a right to then come together and demand action from government and demand delivery. Failure to have such delivery, it will then be up to the citizens to decide the fate of the government in place.
Thank you, Comrade Ngandu, and we end there. Citizens have to come together, civil society, trade unions, and everyone, and chart the way forward and have serious dialogue with government. And if government does not resolve the matter, citizens have to do whatever constitutional means they have in exercising their rights to make sure that their voices are heard. That is a perfect ending for a sorrowful matter. Comrade Ngandu from Labour Caucus in Politics, an organization formed by trade unionists to bridge the gap between unions and unions' work on bread and butter, and the bigger issue that is afflicting this country, which is politics of the nation, and to demand reforms, to demand constitutionalism, and formed also to ensure that workers have got effective participation in the policy processes and politics of their country. So that was Comrade Ngandu Shepherd, who is the Labour Caucus Secretary, National Secretary, and talking to us, telling us that we face a serious crisis where we may lose many jobs. We may also have company closures because companies are failing to get energy and they're failing to get water, and it's affecting everyone. We hope the government will take decisive and urgent measures to ensure that this situation is reversed. But otherwise, from us with the worker voice, thank you for following us. Thank you for listening. Good day.